Welcome once again to the Talking Archive. Now, after Kenny Noble Cortes and I finished our interview, he had a couple more cool stories to share, and I want to present that right now. In fact, how did he get his name?
So my mother is from Bogota, Colombia, and her maiden name is Cortes. And so in Latin America, actually, that is my legal name, Kenny Noble Cortes, because that's what they do. Take the father's name as the middle name, and then the mother's maiden name as their last name, and that's just the way they do it. And so when Tip called me, he said, listen, why don't you just go with Kenny Cortes? He said, I think that'll work here in Miami, and it'll sound a little bit better than, Kenny Noble. I said, yeah, why not? I gave Dad, all the kudos the first part of my career, and I did so well. I mean, I did okay. Let's give Mom a chance. So I did that, Kenny Cortes, and it kind of stuck. And so then I decided shortly after getting there that I would use all three of my names, Kenny Noble Cortes, and that's how that evolved. And that basically is my professional name. It's Kenny Noble Cortes, but my legal name is certainly in the U.S. and most of the world is Kenny Noble. So there you go. That's how that evolved.
Wow! Find out new things every day. That's the great thing about this thing. I forgot to tell you why I started the podcast. I kind of veered off into a different direction. Jay Gardner, who was at KHJ, K-Earth twice, and then I think Aero 93. I worked with him as a board operator for about 2 years at KRLA 99.5, the Christian Talk and Teaching Station, where I work behind the scenes full time. That's what butters my bread. And Jay was telling me all these great stories in radio and also working with Letterman. And then I thought, I got to put this to tape. This is just too good not to share. And then I realized after starting this, I thought, the Radio and TV Academy have all these great interviews with actors, directors, writers, producers. But radio, you'll see some YouTube clips of old newscasts where they profile a DJ for 2 or 3 minutes. But there's not really anything out there, or at least not much, having, a detailed interviews with DJs talking about their careers. And I thought, let me change that, at least try to, a little bit. And that's how it came about. I know that Sky Walker, or also known as, whose real name I think is Dave Montoya or Dave Schuyler, he does have
he was in Chicago, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, he was in L.A., but I don't know if he was in Chicago. He may have been. Probably was. He does have a podcast as well where he interviews DJs too. But he.
Excuse me. I'm thinking of Sky Daniels.
Oh yeah, Sky Daniels. It's funny you mention that because Sky Daniels programmed 88.5 KCSN, the Cal State Northridge radio station, until just a couple of years ago. He was instrumental in changing it from like classical or world music to AAA. And then probably about 6 or 7 years ago, they decided to merge, or at least merge the programming with the 88.5 FM signal in Salback College. So both 88.5 signals are now simulcast with AAA. It's called the SoCal Sound. Jed the Fish, formerly of K-Rock, is on it. So too is Andy Chanley.
Oh, my goodness. Go ahead.
So too is Andy Chanley, who was in several AAA stations here in Southern California. So I think he was also on Y107, which was an alternative format that lasted a very short time. But they poke fun at K-Rock as like, we're not only not world famous, we're not even famous in Eagle Rock. We're not even, so they have these billboards that when we're not even famous in Pacoima, we're not even famous in Culver City.
Oh my goodness! That's funny. That really is, man. You know what? I've been seeing. Here's talk about jogging your memory. If you watch anything that's streaming, you see it's like 90% of the commercials that are aired are either lawsuit commercials like, did you ever serve or live at Camp Lejeune? Or some kind of medical drug, some new miracle drug or something. But there's one commercial that has to do with, did you ever suffer or know someone who used Paraquat? And then every time I see that, I go like, Paraquat Kelly, all right. It's just like, wow, Paraquat Kelly, there he is. So anyway, just a funny thing. That's all. I just always think about him when I see that commercial.
Yeah, I met him about 28 years ago. Was what was then the Museum of Radio and Television. Eventually became the Paley Center in Beverly Hills. And the first day of a 2-day session, they had the AM jocks. So you had Casey Kasem, Brian Byrne, Dan Ingram from New York. Gosh, who else did we have there? Johnny Hayes, Art LeBeau was there.
Hayes was at a KRLA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember Johnny. In fact, he was like quite a dresser. Mm-hmm. I remember he always looked extremely spiffy as a DJ. Johnny Hayes was like the GQ DJ.
Yeah, he had some great stories. He talked about how he grew up in the South and he played what was called race records. And one day, the program director of the radio station he was at said, "Don't you play that N-word music anymore?" And he broke the record. But then Johnny, what he did was he decided to order that record via the mail because he says that's the only way he could get race records in the South was ordering them through the mail, not since no music stores would carry it there. And so he got the record again, and he just didn't tell the audience who it was. He just played it, and that way the program director didn't go in and do what he had done before. But yeah, I didn't even know that he had been in the South. I remember he had been in San Diego on 136 KGB, where he was one of the original boss jocks there, who were first called the KG Beach Boys, along with Jay Stevens, and I forget who else was on there as well. I think Johnny
Jay Stevens. I remember Jay Stevens. And by the way, I think that Mike Wagner got his start in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. His dad was the late Jack Wagner, who's the announcer of many Disneyland attractions. In fact, Jack Wagner is the one at the end of the Matterhorn after the ride's over goes, "Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor." Which everybody loves because it's
Who knew that? What a great little trivia item.
Because everybody loves it because it's the same announcer in both English and Spanish. And because at most rides at Disneyland, you got the English announcer, you got the Spanish announcer. But in this case, it's the same person in both languages.
Wow. Well, I never knew that, so there you go.
In fact, when I'm at Disneyland, I'll kind of mouth it together because I know the line.
Well, being on the East Coast, again, well, of course, when I worked in Miami, obviously I was on the East Coast. And one of the things that the media was treated to was Disney World. Mm-hmm. And I remember I couldn't wait to go to the Raiders of the Lost Ark show. Yeah, show. And it's completely different than the Raiders of the Lost Ark in Disneyland.
Oh, yeah.
I was expecting the Disneyland Raiders of the Lost Ark show, but the one at Disney World is just completely different. So even though much of everything in Disney World is like Disneyland, it's a little bit bigger because they got more room, and in some cases, some of the shows there are different. So anyway, I always loved going there when I could. Back in the day when I was working there, the media was offered 3 free entrances into Disneyland a year, and it was for 4 people. So I had my wife and 2 girls at the time, and so we would take advantage of it maybe 2 times a year or anything, but it was free. And and now, man, it costs you an arm and a leg to go to Disneyland or Disney World.
There was an article a couple of days ago talking about how 50% of those who buy a ticket to Disneyland are pretty much putting themselves in debt because it's so expensive.
Yeah, if you have a family, or if you're going to stay at one of their, their places, man, that's going to cost you a lot. That's going to set you back always. But anyway, those were good memories, and I always appreciated it when we went there. I remember, maybe I'm telling too much here, but I remember one day my wife and I had, just before we were going to go to Disneyland, we had a huge fight. It was just, and I can tell you, nothing is worse than going to Disneyland when there's a thing going on between you and your spouse or your partner or what have you, and it just ruined the whole visit. So, there's a little insight into my personal life. We made up fine, but to go to Disneyland, you got to feel like, hey, we're here to have fun and enjoy each other and love each other and everything. And we were just so mad at each other. It just ruined everything.
We're here to have a good time now. Have a good time.
Yes. Anyway, well, look.
It's like Chevy Chase on vacation. You're going to have so much fun. I'm going to have so much fun. We're going to have so much fun. It's going to take plastic surgery to remove the smiles from our faces. You'll be whistling zippity-doo out of here. I must be crazy. I'm on a bench to see a moose. Hail Marty Moose.
That's great, Josh. That is totally great. Josh, I really appreciate it. I appreciate your patience, and I've there's a lot of things going on with my life, and so this is definitely a high point. And I want you to know that. I really appreciate. I've had some really good memories. You've jogged a bunch of memories, and I say 99% of them are all good and joyful memories. And so, LA was a very special time in my life and career. And so it's great. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Well, thank you, Kenny. I appreciate that, and look forward to talking soon. And if you're ever in the LA area, let's get lunch.
Okay, absolutely. Have your guys call my guys, and we'll set it up.
Sounds good.
Okay, take care, Josh.
You too.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do it again.
And thank you once again, Kenny. This is the Talking Archive. Make sure to check out his website at culturejock.net. That's culturejock.net.